Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are diving back into the Billionaire's Love Story by Lily Zante. Now, if you haven't listened to the first book in the series called The Gift, that is going to be listed down below in the description section, the link for that review video. Once you finish that, come and join us as we dive into book two, which is called The Offer. We start off with our girl Savannah trying to power through the rest of the day. She only lasted a couple hours after that conversation, and then she had to get out of there. She shot Brianni a text saying something came up. I gotta go. I'll tell you about it later. And she goes home. She had got lunch, but didn't have an appetite. So when she's in stress mode, she cleans. And so now her oven is absolutely spotless. So she's home and she just could not get over the words that Tobias said to her. And she compared it to the hits that she used to take from Colt and couldn't decide which was better. Okay, now, I mean, I know words can hurt. I know that, okay? But I'm assuming for her it hurts more because she's really liking this guy. I don't know. I just girl, the stuff that Colt did to you was worse. But for her, it was a doozy what happened with Tobias. So I'm gonna give her that because this is what she went through. We'll go with it. For Brioni calls her and she tells her, I'm fine, I'm fine. It's just that something came up. I'll tell you about it tomorrow. Briani, wanted to know if it was anything going on with Jacob, and she's like, no. And she did tell her that Tobias, I guess, had come by looking for her, and that's about it. She was like, he had a pissed off look on his face, but that's like all the information she had. And she's thinking, Savannah, like, what else could he have possibly wanted to say to me after, such awful things that he said? But of course, she can't say this to Brioni. So she asks Brioni, like, what did he want? And he's like, I don't know. And with the look he had on his face, I wasn't going to ask. That was that. She gets off the phone with Brioni. There is a call waiting. It is I think they were called Selectwood, the temp agency, but they're calling her to let her know she got the job. And she, of course, was like, she wanted to start as soon as possible. And the woman was like, okay, I'll look into it for you. But right now, they were looking at starting uh, in, I think, February, March or something like that. And so she's going to come by the next day and she's going to get all the paperwork filled out on a lunch break. So then we switched to Tobias's POV. And it's been a struggle for him to get through the day. He had meeting after meeting. He's barely been able to really concentrate. He's kind of looking at things, you know, these are new companies that he's not acquired the companies because this is a hedge fund, but he's kind of looking at these different companies to possibly invest in or invest people's money in. And so they're looking at every minuscule thing and he seems to get upset at that, which is what they're supposed to do, right? Like, if you're going to invest or do anything with the company, you want to know every little everything. So we know it's because he didn't want to be in these meetings and he wanted it to be over, but of course no one else knows that. So by 10 o'clock that night, he decides, what, screw it, I'm going over there. He had his PI look up, you know, some information about her and found out about she had like a $10,000 credit card debt, about the hospital bill, looked into the ex-husband cult. He apparently is up to his eyeballs in gambling debts, so he clearly sees she's the sole provider when it comes to Jacob, and so he's decided he's going over there. He's settling this tonight. We switch back to Savannah. She had called Kay and was asking Kate for the money, and Kay was actually pissed because she's like, "You didn't even tell me the child was in the hospital." She's like, "Why wouldn't you tell me that?" And then she's also telling her, like, "Why didn't you sign up for government assistance?" And she thought that she would be able to do it on her own, X, Y, and Z. Um, she didn't think it was gonna be as hard as it's been. And Kay was basically like, "You should have known starting over is hard, but when you're starting over and you got a kid, that's even harder." You know? Like, come on. But I think she has a whole thing with handouts, right? But yet, again, here we are in this situation. I don't know why you didn't think to fucking call Kate first. That's your cousin. That's your family. Why wouldn't you call her and ask her, since you have to pay this bill so fast? Which she doesn't, by the way. I'm still stuck on that shit. But it's like, you didn't even reach out to Kay. Didn't even tell Kay the boy was in the hospital. That's fucked up. You know? So she's feeling like a bad mom at this point. Kay is like, "Listen, I can maybe get you half, you know?" She's like, "But we'll figure something out, you know?" And so she starts to think, Savannah, like, maybe she can do like an evening job at like a diner or something until she can get the money up. But guess what that means? That's going to take you away from your kid even more so. Don't get it twisted. When you listen, you got to do what you got to do when it's just you. But when you have a kid, you got to do what you got to do, what you got to do, what you got to do. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. The phone rings and it's Arnold, letting her know that she's got a visitor. There's a Mr. Stone down here. She's like shocked at first, was about to say no, but then she's like, no, she has things she wants to say. And so she says, "I'm coming down." So we switch back to Tobias's POV. Savannah comes down, they have it out. She tells him she thinks, you know, there's no making up for what he said because you can't take back your words. You can't say stuff like that and then think, "Oh, I'm sorry," is going to cut it. He said that, he found out about Jacob and he, of course, wanted to know if Jacob was okay, X, Y, and Z. And he also tells her, "I know you felt something when we kissed." And she said that was just a natural reaction. "I haven't been with a man in years." And that could have been the same reaction even if it was Matthias. Now that made him mad. But what he wasn't going to do is go off on her about it. But she just kept hitting him, like sucker punching him. And he was like, "You can tell yourself that it could be anyone, but we both know that's not true." And then she hit the final blow. And she says she's going to work the end of her contract and then he'll never see her again. She told him where she got a job at. I'm like, that's not smart, you know? Because that almost feels like you want him to know where you're going to be. You know what I mean? Like, why would you do that? So he had told her, like, the company will pay for the medical bills, X, Y, and Z. And she was like, no, he also told her, "We'll give you medical insurance, all this type of stuff, the advance if you need it. Like, I'll give you a year to pay it back." Like, he was telling her all these things. And again, she's like, she doesn't do handouts. So she's not into that, right? So even though he could just pay the bill, she'll get mad about that, right? So when she says something about the other job, she turns and she leaves. And when he goes back to his car, he's like, "Find out everything about Southwood Select, and I want everything on my desk by morning." And he was pretty much like, she's got another thing coming if she thinks she's just going to be out of my life. We switched to Savannah's POV, and that was really hard for her, especially with him sounding so remorseful. Like, that was really difficult. And she had to keep up that, you know, hard persona of I don't care what you say, this is how it is, I'm done. She doesn't want to go through flip flop emotions, which is what she had to go through with Colt. And she decided she's just going to stay away from him. She's not going to subject her son to that type of any type of bullshit. She's just not going to do it. And I get that. You know, you've seen a couple sides to him. I get it. I totally understand it. I'm not gonna knock her for it. However, I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate here, okay? He was there to try to fix the mistake. He jumped to a conclusion and he was trying to fix it. However, as well, it did not help the fact that when you came to him, here he was thinking you were gonna have a conversation about that kiss that happened, and you came and asked him for some money. And all you said was an emergency came up and I need $3,500, right? Instead of saying, my son got sick, you know, is there any way I could be advanced the money? You know, could you give me time to pay it off? Anything like that. You just came in and you asked for money. And so because of that, he talked to you like you were just wanting his money. Just saying. It's just how you have to look at it from each person's perspective. I see where he was coming from, but we both have on both sides two stubborn people, and they see things one way and don't consider another option, right? And that's an issue on both sides, not just on his and not just on her. Both of them do this. And so when you do that, guess what you have? A standstill. Cuz now she feels like I can't deal with him, and yet now he feels like I was wrong. I know I was wrong, but I'm going to fix this because I messed up. I got to fix it. Next day, she goes into work, and of course, Brioni wants to know what happened. So she lied and said that her the father of her child called, and it was a big thing with him not wanting to help and all that type of stuff. And Brioni's like, well, maybe you can go to HR. And she's like, no, no, no. And Brioni is like, wait a minute. If you say you need help, why are you turning it down? And she says, well, no, it's okay. My cousin's going to help me out. So it's okay. And she knew this was the time that she should have told Brioni about the other offer, but she didn't. She's like, she's not going to say anything until the paperwork's signed. But I'm like, you should tell her because Tobias knows about this other position. What if he puts her on alert, right? Like, it's like, I understand you trying to secure something for yourself, but she's also been trying to secure something for you as well. And why not let her know X, Y, and Z? So I do think she was in this situation. I kind of feel like she could have gave her a heads up. It's not like you're in a situation normally with a job and you don't tell them what you're doing because you're just trying to leave, you know. But you seem to have built some type of a friendship with her. So, why not let her know this is happening? So if you might want to go ahead and start looking outward for someone if you need someone for a position. Brioni comes in to meet with Tobias and she's like, no, Matthias? And he's like, no, this is something kind of top secret he's been thinking about. They'd had a conversation over a year and a half ago about a position, doing like a little research on companies that he was interested in. And he doesn't want it to go through marketing because it's not that pressing, but it's something that he could use help with. So the person would report directly to Brioni. They wouldn't have anything to do with him. It would be a part-time position. And so then between this and then the other work that she'll need help with, this could be a full-time position for Savannah. So at first she wasn't getting it until he said like Savannah's name. And then she's like, oh, okay, this could work. She was like, well, just have to change, what I was going to submit to HR because I already had it done. And he's, of course, like, I hope we can keep this within these walls, X, Y, and Z. And he was like, when do you plan on telling her? And she's like, I'm going to go tell her right now. We switched back to Savannah. She took her ass to go sign the paperwork at Southwood Select. And Bella, the woman, tells her there's no job. She got word from her boss that they were retracting the offer. She's like, it happens sometimes. They'll hire internally and then they don't let them know. And she, of course, is now freaking out. What am I going to do? I need this job. Bella's like, you're already at Stone Enterprises. Like, do you not realize how hard it is to get in there? Like, why not try to pursue something permanent there? She goes, I can't. I got to leave. Why, of course, she can't say. And Bella's like, well, right now I don't have anything. So she's like, well, just please be on the lookout for me. She goes back to Stone Enterprises. Brioni so excited to tell her about the job offer and what it entails, and she's super skeptical. And Brianna's just kind of looking at her like, wait a minute, like this fixes all of your issues. Like the money she's going to be getting is that of a researcher, which is a lot more than what Brioni could have paid her as an admin, and it's more than what she would have made at Southwood Select. So it's like why aren't you happy about this? You know? And she's just super skeptical, and Brioni's like, are you not happy about this? Do you not want it? You know? And so she makes the comment, she's so used to things being ripped from underneath her, she doesn't like to get excited. And Brioni, of course, is like, this is something we talked about a year and a half ago. And Matthias is the one, he likes the global stuff, international, whereas Tobias likes to play it a little bit safer, prefers things that aren't as far away, more US based. And she was like, can I just take the contract home and go over it? I'm gonna do it, but just let me read through it, the fine print, just to ease my own mind. And so Brioni's like, okay, fine. We switch to Tobias's POV. He's in his office with Candace, and there's a knock on the door at Savannah, and he sends Candace away. And of course, she's got an attitude because she can't stand it when he does this, and she tries to remind him he's having drinks at the Oasis, and he's like, I heard you the first time. And then Savannah goes, did you do this? And he's like, did I do what? And she's like, create that job for me. And he said, it's a job that me and Brioni had talked about a while back. If you don't want it, you can turn it down. She can find someone else to do it. Um, he states he didn't create it for her, X, Y, and Z. He also made sure she understood, you're not reporting to me. You only report to Brioni. You know, that's that. So then we switch to her POV. She's at home with Jacob. Jacob's like, what's that letter you're looking at? And she's like, it's a new job. He got sad because he thought she was leaving Stone Enterprises. She's like, no, it's actually a permanent job there now. And he was like, okay. So now he's happy. So then she thought about the fact that, now she could do more things with them. She'll have the funds. Um, and then she talked to him about what the doctor had told her, which was that he wasn't using his freaking inhaler. And then we find out that the little Henry Carson kid, the bullier, that his ass was telling him that he was so weak for using the inhaler, so that's why he fucking stopped. I'm like, oh my gosh. She's like, you can't do that. You cannot let other people dictate what you do, you know? She's like, it could have been really bad for you, fatal, in some situations. It can be. And what was cute about this conversation before she said something, when she was asking him, he didn't say anything. And she went, Jacob Samuel Stone, and he started giggling. And she's like, why are you giggling? He said, you call me Jacob Samuel Stone. She's like, I meant Paige. And he's like, Jacob Samuel Stone. Like, he loved it, of course. And that's when she went into her whole spiel about the inhaler. We do find out he has a new friend named Lenny. Lenny doesn't like the Carson kid either. Like most of the other kids, they love him because he's a big show off, but Lenny's not a fan of him. So she's like, well, we should maybe have Lenny over, try and cultivate that friendship. Because otherwise, her child isn't going to have, it seems like, any other friends. And that's just sad. Kids can be very cruel. Very cruel. We switch to Tobias, and him and Matthias are on a plane headed for weeks of meetings. I'm not even sure where they're going. But Matthias is having a drink, and our boy Tobias is wanting to get into more tech. And Matthias feels like tech is a never ending hole because technology is always evolving. And so Matthias starts asking him about the guy from Hong Kong. I think his name is Zing Lang, something like that. And he's like, you've been stringing him along all week. He's like I told you, I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't feel good about it. And he brings, then Matthias brings up the position um, that Savannah has, which he knew he was going to do. He was waiting for it. And he said something about, he brought up Naomi. And this is when old boy decides to tell that Naomi was a prostitute. She's an escort. Shocked the shit out of Matthias. Matthias just couldn't get off of it. Because, Matthias is a love him and leave him type. So he doesn't do commitment. So he's like even asking, shoot, can I get Naomi's number? Like, let me get her card. Like, because he feels like that's what you should be doing anyway. Because Tobias is like, I didn't want emotional attachments. And you know why I didn't. I'm like, this is a mess. So then we switch back to Savannah. Her and Brioni are having lunch, and Candace walks by, has this little snarky remark about the position that Savannah has. Brianna was like, listen, we talked about that position, me and Tobias, over a year ago. And she says something about Matthias is going to have a talk with him. This is Candace. Is going to have a talk with him about that position. They're probably having that conversation as we speak. And they're just kind of like, okay, whatever. Eventually, Candace leaves. And the problem with Candace is that Candace has been wanting him since she got there, right? So if anyone is a threat, okay? And Brioni was just kind of explaining this to her. The fact that you helped him with some templates and stuff like that, it's all a threat, you know? But in all honesty, I think it's more so with her. She ain't worried about the job. She's worried about the way that she sees looks between the two of you. Because people have got to see this. They've got to see this. Got to. And so she's more upset about the fact that she's been here all this time. He doesn't pay attention to her. But here comes this new person, and she's getting his eye. And it's pissing her off. That's the big thing. Brioni asks her out to have a drink. And she lets it slip that her birthday's in a few days. Like right before Valentine's Day, she's going to be, I want to say 28 or 29. So, of course, Brioni's like, we got to throw a little shindig. She's like, nothing too big. And Brioni's like, I'll keep it small. And then Savannah's thinking about inviting Tobias, maybe emailing him to kind of test the waters. Because, again, when you're upset, you say a lot of things. But now this little amount of time has passed. He's kept his word. He stayed away from her. Right? Stayed out of her way. And look, she's already kind of like wanting to see him, wanting to reach out. Tobias comes back from his trip to San Diego. That's where they went. Matthias partied a good chunk of the time. He, however, spent a good chunk of the time going through the financials for the new tech companies. And he also kept rereading the email that our girl Savannah had sent to him, which was basically, thank you so much for letting me know to go to HR. They gave me more than enough for the advance to take care of the hospital bill, and I'm sorry for anything I might have said in anger. Uh, so he's going over it, thinking, okay, this is good, right? This is good. He's still not going to make a move. He feels like if she wants it to be something like it was before, she's going to have to initiate that. He's not going to do it. He's trying to. He's just not going to make it easy for her at this point. And he also wanted to take himself out of the way to kind of see if she would want him, right? If she would want to come to him. And you know what? This shit is working. So he gets off the private plane, comes to the office, runs into Brioni and Savannah. They're leaving, and he never really looked at Savannah. He just kind of talked to Brioni. He goes ahead upstairs, and then Savannah does the whole, oh, I forgot something. So she could go back in that goddamn building, and she was like, you can just get it later. And she's like, no, it's my organizer. And Brioni's like, you still writing one of those? She's like, yeah, I write everything down. It's habit. So then she goes back. Boom. Who does she run into the elevator? None other than Mr. Stone. So she did the whole, I forgot something or whatever. And he said, okay. He didn't, he said, how did he say it? He said he had an impromptu dinner date, which to her sounded like this is a date with a woman. And she didn't know if it was Naomi or if it was some new person that he was involved with. So this, of course, crushed her. He told her, you and Jacob have a good weekend. Bam. So she goes upstairs because, she's got to commit to this. Goes up to 21 flights, comes back down. She sees there's a response to the email, and it basically is just very cold. And it says, you know, here at Stone Enterprises, we value our employees. We strive to give them excellent blah, 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 blah. It was just very cold. Nothing for her to hold on to. And so old girl was just very disappointed. So the person that Tobias is going to dinner with is his mother, Millicent. So his dad, Ellery, he's kind of like, you okay? You're good? Great. He goes on. He has a life with his friends. He's cool. Uh, Tobias bought them a place in Connecticut. They also have a place in New York City. But his mother always wants massive amounts of their time. It's an issue. Like, even when he was married to Ivy, she didn't like Ivy at first. She tried to put herself in all of their business. She was very territorial. She's still this way when it comes to her sons. And she's a lot. So then Xavier apparently introduced her to Petra, who's a supermodel he's been dating. And the mother isn't too crazy about her, but that's not a real shock, being that she doesn't, how do I say it? How do I say it? Being that she has so much control, she wants to be in there so much in their lives. Like, I get you loving your children, you want to be around them, but they're adults, they're grown. They have lives, and she wants to be involved of every part of it. I was like, maybe she ain't got enough to do. Maybe you done made all this money. Maybe she needs more things to do. While they're having their dinner, he smiled or something, and the mother's like, what's that? And he was saying, he's like, I was just thinking about a friend of mine and her son. And the mother, of course, is like, is this what I think it is? And the mother's like, why do you, like, pretty much like, why are you hanging out with the woman and her son? What's going on? And she makes a comment that makes me think that possibly Ivy was either pregnant or they had a really young son, because the mother was kind of like, is this, you're not trying to replace or something like that. So I'm thinking one of the two, Ivy was pregnant or they had a really young kid, something. Hopefully they haven't said anything yet, but we'll see as we go further along in the book. So he at that point was ready for her to go. He was trying to play it cool, um, but he was done at this point. But then he starts thinking about Savannah again, and he, I don't know. I'm a little annoyed with them both because nobody's being forthright. He's now trying to be more aloof because he's trying to bring her in. So it's like he shouldn't have to play these type of games, but because of how upset she got, this is how he feels he needs to do it in order to get her back, because him being honest and saying I'm sorry and this, wasn't good enough. So they annoy me a little bit with the fucking games. We switched to Savannah. She's on the phone with Kay, and she's letting her know, don't worry about it. I got the money for the hospital bills taken care of. Kay wanted to know, like, well, how did you do that? And she told her about the permanent position at Stone Enterprises. Kay is like, knowing all about this place. She's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that's where you were working. Like, wow, you know? And she knows damn near everything about Mr. Stone. Okay, she's all about the gossip sites and everything, and she's just like, oh my gosh, like when I get back, we're gonna have to do lunch. I'm coming to pick you up after work. She's like, oh my gosh. So it's funny because she has no clue. Which I'm just kind of like, why aren't you telling her? You should be able to tell Kay, right? Or do you not really trust her? Because hell, you didn't even tell about your fucking kid being in the hospital. But I'm just kind of like, why not just talk to her and tell her, like, so you have an outlet? Because her just thinking this stuff to herself, it's just bouncing off of fuckery. You know what I mean? And she kind of needs a board to sound off on. You can't tell Brioni. I get that. You work with her. I get that whole spiel. But Kay's your cousin. Like, why not talk to her about it? But I guess she just doesn't feel comfortable. Savannah's in the office with Brioni. They're talking, and we find out that Brioni has invited a good chunk of people to this little get together. It's now going to be at the Oasis. Candace is one of the people she's invited. It's just a bunch of mess. And Savannah's like, that's not what I wanted. Like, this is becoming something big, and I told you I wanted something really small. She's like, the first round of drinks, will be on me. And I'm like, nah, bitch, all this shit gonna be on you. Because why is she paying for stuff? It's her birthday, and you are the one who wanted to do this. So why is she paying for stuff? No, bitch, all of this gonna be on your tab. The fuck? I'm just saying. It's like if you just wanted to, her to meet Max, your partner, great. Cool. Y'all have drinks, no problem. But you're like inviting other people into this, and she should not be responsible financially for this. So she can kick rocks if she think that girl should have to pay for the thing. No. But anyway, um, Savannah makes a segment. Well, hell, did you invite Tobias? Since you invited everyone else. And she was like, well, I didn't, because he normally doesn't go to those type of things, So she's got to go take him a report, and she figures she'll ask him to come to the little shindig, our girl Savannah. She's going to get some FaceTime with her Tobias. So she goes in later that day. Matthias is in the office, so of course she does the whole sorry to interrupt, and Matthias is like, oh, here's the birthday girl and all this and all that. And he, again, doesn't give her too much. Tobias doesn't really say that much to her. What happened? She invited him to the shindig, He just says thanks and that's it. Matthias walks out. She walks out with him. And he, of course, is excited, our boy Matthias, because he's like, I'll see you on Friday. Because he likes Savannah too. Savannah gets an email from Tobias the day after her birthday. She had been all refreshing her emails all day, trying to see if he said something to her. Never said anything. She sees the email and it says that he needs 5 years worth of data on a certain page. And this crushes her because it's like, what the hell? He says nothing about my birthday? So she goes into him, brought the information. He's like, I told you to make changes on pages 13 and 17 too. She's like, no, you didn't. You only mentioned this one page. He says, I sent another email like 2 minutes after I sent the first one. Well, she hadn't checked the email anymore after she saw that, so she didn't see any updates. So he's like, things rapidly change around here. You have to keep checking. So she was about to walk out, and he says, how was yesterday? And her heart leaps because it's like, oh my gosh, he wants to know how my day went. So she starts telling him what she did with Jacob, and he's like, I'm at the meeting with Brioni. She's like, oh. She tells him about the meeting, and she's like, I'll get the changes done for you, and that's that. And before she finished with the changes, um, she sent him an email saying, are there any more changes before, you know, I complete this? And he said something back, and so they're having this little back and forth with the emails. She gets everything done. She's getting ready to take them back, and then Brioni comes by, and she's like, oh, I'm getting ready to go meet with Tobias and Matthias. I'll take it. Crushes her dreams because now she can't go back and get any more FaceTime with them. So, again, this is where I'm like, they're taking it too far. Like, they're playing with each other instead of just being straight up about stuff. She's at her little birthday shindig. It's Friday. Matthias, Candace there, They're talking a little smack about Tobias. And Matthias seems to look like he's just undressing her with his eyes. And he kept making sure her champagne glass was full. And she kept drinking. And she also noticed that he kind of came at her with, what made you qualify for the position? And she saw that Candace and Matthias clearly had a friendship, and it seemed a little like, you know? And the snarky comments about Tobias that they were making, and she, of course, feels a little protective of him, but she can't say anything because I kind of feel like maybe they do talk about this stuff all the time, or maybe Matthias is trying to pull something out of her. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know. But she's smart enough to know, don't show anything, don't say anything. So then she sees that she's gotten an email, and it was saying that, it was from Tobias saying that the color she used on one of the charts was hard to read. She replied back, and it was something about, it's Friday night, X, Y, and Z. They again do this little back and forth, and they're saying stuff, and he's like, I don't want to keep you. You got a lot going on. And no, that's what she said to him, because she was like, I know, because she had overheard Matthias and Candace talking about the fact that he was going to Martha's Vineyard this weekend. And he's like, news travels fast. And then he says, if you want to come and work on it now, you can. I'll be here. And so to her, oh, that was an invitation. Savannah takes her little ass back to their office, and they do the little, kind of toying around with each other and everything. And she's telling him, you didn't come to my party. He's like, oh, you wanted me there? She's like, yes. They're just going back and forth. And then she said something about him not wanting her anymore. And of course, he was like, I want you, but I backed off and gave you your space because you said you never wanted to be around me again. So I was trying to give you what you wanted. And she was like, well, time has passed. And I don't want that. And she finally told him she wanted him to kiss her. And so he kissed her. and she was so gone, but someone was still in the office, so she kind of wind up hiding behind him, and the person was just like, oh, have a great weekend, bye bye. They left, and like she was rubbing on his back, and so when the person left, he just crashed into her, and it was like, fuck it, he was ready. So he was like, let's go. So he took her up to his penthouse. The girl thought about the fact that she had on these off-white panties. She didn't have on any sexy ones. Um, and she was like, oh shoot, oh shoot. Well, he's kind of looking at her. He sees some hesitation, and he's like, listen, if we don't have to do this if you're not ready, if you don't want to. And she's like, no, 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 I'm sure I want this. So they head up to that penthouse, honey. They get up there, they're kissing, and she's kind of in awe of the place. Even though she'd been there before, but remember when she came up before, it was just the X for that advance. So, she didn't really take it all in. So they're going at it. He had protection. She was like, I want you. I want you. And she was like, you promised me things, and like that's what I want. Like she wanted to be fucked. So he gave her what she wanted. So they had a nice hard fuck, made her come. She had never had sex like that before. Like even when it wasn't bad with Colt, she had never had sex like that before. So they're laying there afterwards, and she's like, I gotta go. She had told Rosalie she was gonna be back about 10. It was now 10:30, and he was like, I don't want you to go. And he also told her, I don't want this to be a one time thing. She's like, me either. He's like, I want this to be something. And he's like, I want to be with you. And she was like, I come with the kid, and X, Y, and Z. And he's like, I understand. He asked her to come with him to Martha's Vineyard this weekend. He was going for a wedding, but she was like, she couldn't. And then her phone buzzed. It was a missed call, but it wasn't from Rosalie. It was from Colt. So she doesn't answer. Tobias Stone, of course, is like in his mind thinking he wants to be with her. He wants to make her life easier. He knows she's got a lot going on. And, you know, he wants to confess to her what he did with the job. Um, but they're in such a happy moment. He doesn't want to ruin that. So he leaves it alone. So Tobias drives her back to her apartment. They kiss. They're just so wrapped up in each other. It's so sweet. And she's like, you're making it hard for me to leave. And he's like, why don't you and Jacob come with me this weekend? And in her head, she's like, but who would know? Like, who would you say I am? How are you going to explain us? She wasn't ready for all of that. She said to him, like, it's going to take some time because here's the thing. She's an admin. All right. He's a CEO. Now, he got enough money to say, I don't care. I do what I want. But she would be the person that would deal with the fallout. It's going to hit her more so. And so I kind of get why she's like, I ain't trying to like put this all out for a couple reasons. First of all, it's brand new. We've already had a couple of situations where we fell out and didn't, see eye to eye, and it blew up. It was, so it's a little rocky. I get not trying to go public and dealing with all of that backlash you're going to get with that as well. So she goes upstairs. She's like, Rosalie, I'm so sorry I'm late because it was like 11. Rosalie's like, listen, it is fine. She lives a few blocks away. She was just happy to see her go out and have a good time. Um, she wanted to give her money for a cab. She's like, no, I can walk. It's okay. Um, she was just happy and said, you're glowing. And she's like, you needed that. And she's like, yeah, I did. So she goes in to check on her son. And of course, she does still wish that she could have been in the arms still of good old Tobias. Tobias got back early from his Martha's Vineyard wedding weekend. He came back Sunday, and he was hoping he could see Savannah. It was Valentine's Day. He'd been calling her, but she hadn't answered. Kind of worried him. He didn't know if she was starting to have the regrets, and didn't want to deal with him anymore. So he went to the gym. I think he wound up going to the gym twice. So around 6ish, he saw where she had called. He called her back, and um, she had been at a birthday party. It was Lenny's, because kids, it don't matter. The birthday following that day, they having a party. So that's what she was doing, and they had this little mushy talk. It was so sweet, because they didn't anticipate, you know, the missing of each other as much as they did. And he was very forthright with her, telling her how much he missed her, thought about her all weekend, just straight up. And I liked it. He wanted to take her and Jacob out for dinner, but she's like, no, it's 6 o'clock, and then he'll be even more grumpier later, and all these different excuses. But I think, again, she's not ready to go public. And here's the thing, give her a little bit more time. It's been 2 fucking days. Mine ain't gonna change in 2 days. Yes, it worked for that week. You got her to turn around. Yes. But this is bigger. Me talking to you in private, us having a conversation, doesn't involve anybody else. But once we go public, everything gets thrown out there. And it's like, give her a little bit more time. She don't want to go to dinner because people are going to see. She don't want to deal with that. They make plans for the next day, and they're going to meet up after work, so she'll work late. And then they'll have a little fun in the penthouse. And so the next morning, she goes and tells him hello. And he has this big smile on his face when she comes in. And she tells him, I know you're a busy man and stuff like that. But she just wanted to come in and say a couple words to him. She did express how, he's talking about commitment, things like that. And those are big words. Again, it's new, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. He seems to, it's just so extreme for him. But I guess maybe because he went through such a period of time where he didn't feel anything for people, when he feels something, it's, I guess it makes him throw all caution to the wind. Because it's like, you want to be serious with a woman, you don't even know the situation fully with her ex-husband. It wasn't good, you can tell, you know, but you don't even know the full extent of that. Now, I know he's done some digging, with a PI, but you can only get so much. So, I don't know. I kind of get from his perspective. I think if you felt numb on the inside for so many years, and then someone sparked something within you, I could see someone, falling a lot quicker, being more open to something serious sooner. I could see that. So what also happens when she goes in early, Candace ass is there, and she's like, what are you doing here so early? And she's like, why does it matter? I'm here to see Tobias or whatever. And that's when she goes in, and he has that big smile for her, X, Y, and Z. So he got her something for Valentine's Day. It was like a jellyfish or something. She thought it was sweet because he thought about her, and she just loved that. And then he said something again about getting dinner. She's like, no, not yet. She doesn't say to him this, but she thinks it. She knows her ex-husband. He's like into loose women, booze, all that kind of stuff. She doesn't want him to know where she is, and he knows she's in New York. Still don't know how that happened. I think it was the man. I could be wrong. But, you know, I get that. If she pops up with this whole rich ass man, this could cause problems. So for now, can't do it. Just that's that. Well, she's gonna stay with him tonight until 9 o'clock, and because that's how late she had told Rosalie she can be. She would stay, and he's like, okay, fine, that'll work. He's just happy to get any kind of time with her. Um, She, of course, is a little worried about feeling for him because it's already happening. And that's kind of that is scary because how do you stop it? When it starts to happen, it's kind of difficult. She wanted to kiss him that morning in the office, but they can't do that. That's not too smart. Matthias comes in and, you know, she leaves, and he said something like, I didn't know you all worked together. Something really slick, Matthias says. And that's what makes me, a couple reasons why I don't really fully truly trust Matthias. One is because he started off being the golden boy at this place called Schwartz and something that they worked in, that they came up in. And what happened was Tobias surpassed him. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like when things like that happen, people don't forget them. Even though it's not her fault, I'm sorry, his fault. If the owner or whoever it was took an interest in him, that's what happened. But I think if you're the golden child and then someone else comes along, that's always going to be a problem. Like, every single time, that's going to be an issue. So I feel like he's holding on to resentment with that. And especially when it comes down to the situation with Hong Kong, you see that he's being very cautious with it, and he has good reasoning as to why he doesn't want to jump into it. And it's like he keeps trying to make him jump into it, and I almost wonder if he's trying to do that so the company can fail and then he can start something up. I don't know. I don't fully trust Matthias at all. I just don't. And the way him and Candace are kind of close and stuff, it's just, I don't know. It's just very suspicious. It's like I wonder where the cameras are. I feel like he's seeing stuff, but he's like saying stuff, but not fully saying everything. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just, I don't know. But she got out of there and she was happy because they still had a little sweet moment, and she loved that. Savannah was in the bathroom. End of the day, she was finna freshen up, but then Brioni popped in, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you were gone." She's like, "No, I'm still here. Just got a few more things." And she told her how Max was really glad to meet her. Oh, she was shocked to find out Max was a woman because Brioni had never said anything, and she was like, "Is that a problem?" And you know, Savannah was like, "No, it's not a problem. I was just shocked. I didn't know. That's all. I was just shocked because I didn't know." And that was it. And so she was like, Max was really glad to meet you, X, Y, and Z. And she's able to get away from her. So then she finally is able to go and freshen up. She meets him in the elevator, and they don't jump on each other like I thought they would, but he grabs her hand. They get to the 30th floor. And then of course they go at it. The phone rings. It's Rosalie. She answered it because she was freaking out, but it wasn't anything bad. Rosalie just wanted to make sure it was okay to give him mac and cheese because it irritates his asthma, so she doesn't let him eat it all the time. So she just wanted to make sure he could have it. So it was cool. Then they get back into it, and she's like, "I thought you wanted to take me upstairs." So he takes her upstairs. Big gorgeous bed. They're kissing. The phone rings again. He's like having her undress, and this time the person keeps calling. Well, guess who it is? It's fucking Colt. So he was like, "Just answer it. He's been trying to get in contact with you. Just answer it." So she answers it. He's like calling her to wish her happy birthday, and she's like, "It's not my birthday." He's like, "Well, I've been trying to call you since last week to wish you happy birthday and all this." And then he asked her about the hospital bill, and she was like, "I got it figured out. Don't worry about it." He was like, "Well, how'd you do that?" And she's like, "What?" He's like, "How did you get up $3,500? She's like, "It's not for you to worry about. You haven't worried all this time. Don't start." He's like, "I'm trying, And he's like, that's my kid too. I have a right to him. And she's like, again, you never cared before. So what's the point? So he kept on. He's like, I'm trying to do better. All this type of stuff. She, of course, didn't want to hear it. But she's also about to fuck. So she's just been like, I'll talk to you later. So after that, um, she hangs up. And actually, before she hung up, she told him, don't ever call her again. She's like, we'll be fine without you. She was done. And then she was now ready to just fully be open to Tobias. Afterwards, they're laying in bed. Tobias just loves this, doesn't want her to leave, and says that to her. And she's like, I gotta go and all this type of stuff. He's gonna be going to Hong Kong, and he would like for her and Jacob to come along. It would be great for him to see other parts of the world, another culture. And she's doesn't say no just yet. She's like, she'll think about it. So then he takes her to Rosalie's place to pick up Jacob. Jacob, of course, psyched to see Mr. Stone. He gets in, and he drives him back to their place. And Jacob, of course, is like, can Mr. Stone come up? And he saw the hesitance on Savannah's face and was just like, another time, buddy. He's like, I promise you. And she's like, yeah, I promise. Tobias and Matthias have a conversation about the Far East again. Yangling, I think is the man's name. And of course, he's all in favor of it because of their, slow progression, and the downward dip the previous year. Tobias is not. He's not into it. So Matthias is kind of, he made a comment. Oh gosh, what did he tell him? Because he trusts Tobias. I'm sorry, he trusts Matthias, completely, almost to a fault, I feel. Okay, but he does, and he trusts his business decisions, you know. And Matthias was pointing out, listen, he helped us out in the beginning, and Tobias is like, but that business decision benefited him. You know, we don't owe him anything because of that. So they're supposed to go there for a week. He still doesn't know if Savannah's going to go or not. He, of course, would like for her to go, but I'm like, how is that going to fucking work with Matthias being there? Like, that shit's not going to work. That's going to be a problem. Um, I already feel like Matthias is trying to, like, form a coup or something. So it's like, it's only been 2 weeks, and I don't know. I'm just not, I just don't think that is going to happen. I don't think it needs to happen. Um, well, anyway, it's been a little minute since they've seen each other, and it's becoming frustrating. You know, but if you feel what you feel, then you go the extra mile for the person. You know, y'all have a little bit of a situation. Can't really be in each other's face all the time like you would like to. That's not the situation you all find yourselves in. So you all have to work around it, which means it's more work. That's just kind of how it's going to be between the two of you all. Our girl Savannah's been having a rough time too. She's counting the days. It's been like 11 days, no sex. It's weird because she went 3 years before. She really didn't think about it, but listen, once you start getting that good, it gets back on your brain. So Tobias came to her and wanted to say, let's have lunch now. She's like, I don't think that's a good idea. Fear, of course, people finding out, the gossip, things like that. So he's like, we can have it up in the penthouse. I'll have Candace get us some sandwiches. She's like, no, I'll go get them. So before she leaves out, Matthias' ass pops up. And so Tobias says, make sure you add the 3 years data to that report, and tells Matthias, I'll see you at 3, walks off. So, of course, Matthias is like, what company? Thankfully, she had worked on the one from San Diego yesterday, so she said their name. I think it was Dextronics or something like that. And so clearly he's fishing. And she thinks she's being paranoid, and she might be a little bit, but I think he is being, he's definitely fishing for some information. Um he did come at her a little bit on her birthday, but you know, she left, which helped. Because who knows what would have happened if she had stayed. So she goes and gets the sandwiches. She comes back. She gets stopped by fucking Brioni. Brioni. She got her on the 21st because the person was like, "Oh, you're going higher." So she got off, and Brioni's like, "Sorry, we got to change X, Y, and Z, and that's it." You know, fucked up that whole meet. They finally get to spend a little chunk of time together. Tobias goes to her apartment. They got like 4 hours together. Rosalie has Jacob. So he brought him another little Iron Man, brought her some flowers, some other stuff. And they start kissing. They're going at it. They have a nice hard quick fuck. Um they get really excited. I guess when you do have to wait in between, then you're just like, let me get to it. Afterwards they feel really complete. She says she feels really complete with him just laying there, and she does tell him that. And he pretty much lets her know he's felt that same way around her. And again, that issue of them being seen together comes up, but he says, I know I'm being impatient because I want to see you, and I know the timing is off. I know we're busy. I know this. But basically, we got to find a way because they just adore being around each other. So her parents are coming down for Easter. They're going to be down for a couple weeks. And so she's like, maybe we can go go away for a few days or whatever like that. And then they get a big shock because Jacob and Rosalie are back and they got to throw their clothes on real fast. And he didn't have on his socks. And so Jacob busts in the door and Jacob's like, Mr. Stone, what are you doing here? Thankfully, the baby didn't pick up on anything. Okay. He was just happy to see Mr. Stone. He also saw that he had gotten him a new Iron Man, and he, of course, was extremely excited about that. And of course, he was like, thank you so much, and all this type of stuff. You're the best. So Rosalie and Jacob had come back to get the soccer ball, but what winds up happening is Savannah was like, let's just all go have a day in Bryant Park, And of course, Jacob was all into that. And I just thought it was really sweet because, I mean, he's so unaware, the kid, he just knows this is a nice man, and he, is friends with my mom, and that's good enough for him, He doesn't look at it beyond that. So they're at the park, they're having a wonderful time, and Jacob's on his scooter, having a blast. Tobias and Savannah had made like plans to have pizza afterwards, right? And after they've made plans, he decides to tell her what he did with that job. That he was the one that did it. She is furious. She's like, you're playing with people's lives. You don't get to decide what's better for me. All this type of bullshit. She accused them of only wanting her to be there at Stone Enterprises because he had left his other plaything, Naomi, and now he wanted something close by. That pissed him off. He didn't see her reacting that way, or saying anything like that. He figured she might not be too happy about it, but he didn't see her saying that. So the little boy comes up. He's hungry. He wanted something now. So Savannah went and got him a hot dog. And when she left, Tobias and Jacob have a little conversation. And Jacob was asking him, like, who's his favorite superhero? And he said Superman. And then he said Batman. And then Tobias asked him, like, why do you like Iron Man so much? And he says, because then I'll be able to protect mommy. Because daddy used to be really mean to her and make her cry. And I want to protect her. So this, of course, ripping the insides of Tobias, that they've had to endure this. And I will say this. He was trying to her life easier. He was trying to give her what she needed without forcing her to have to deal with him. I get that she feels, like, okay, you're taking stuff into your hands, like you're making decisions for me, but we got to be a little realistic. You haven't done what you should have done when it came to making sure you applied for free healthcare. You damn sure qualified. Okay? You didn't do what you needed to do, and now there's a ripple effect, and now someone comes in and they're not saying you have to give me something in order for me to do this for you. They're going, you need this, I will do this for you, and I'll remove myself from the equation, and you're fucking pissed. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. I get you want to make your own decisions. I get you were in a horrible relationship where you probably clearly weren't allowed to make decisions, but this is an extreme reaction. This is a whole lot of underlying stuff. You got to remember, he doesn't know what you went through in the previous relationship. When he did this, he had no clue. He probably figured it wasn't probably a good one, but he didn't know the depths of how awful that relationship was. He just got a small glimpse on based on what Jacob just told him, you know? So again with her, he does it too. It's not one-sided. This is why they bump heads, because they both are so extreme in their reactions instead of having a conversation. Or when they do try and have a conversation, it's like the other person just doesn't get it. So of course, she decided she was not going to have him over for pizza. That's a done deal, right? Because she's pissed. But again, here's the thing. That job was not a guarantee that it was going to go into a permanent position. But he's giving you something permanent with benefits. You weren't going to get benefits with the other job. Like, I don't know. Again, she made it out to be like, okay, then you're only doing this so that I'll be your sex toy. But that's not what he did. He never asked you for sex. You are always attacking him, if you want to be honest. You know? So, I don't know. So, Savannah comes back, of course, and she's just beyond pissed. Jacob, he eats, and they wind up leaving, and she tells him, I just need time. She comes to his window when they get to her place, and she says, I just need time. He, of course, is like, I just don't understand why you're so upset. I don't get it. And she's like, that's my whole point. You don't get it. That's controlling. And she's like, there's helping the ones you care about, but there's a line between the two of those things, between helping and controlling. And he's like, you weren't listening to me. You didn't want to talk to me. You wanted to be away from me. So I made a choice that would help you and kind of remove me out of the way. You know? Like, I get what he's saying. I kind of understand her, but not to her reaction to me is just fucking trash. Because she's making it out to be about something else. And again, you haven't gone through and told this person, hey, this is what I went through in my previous relationship. I have an issue with people that have control issues. I used to be controlled. Like, you got to tell people stuff. But she's not saying anything. And just pisses me off. Well, anyway, he speeds off because he's pissed. And of course, the little boy is happy because he sees a fast car. So he's like, yay! So almost like a week passes. She hasn't talked to him. Um, she hasn't called. He doesn't call her. I guess they're trying to give each other the space, right? Because she's still upset. She wants to have a conversation. I'm sorry. She winds up having a conversation with Rosalie. Because she knew Rosalie was gonna want to have a convo about this. After seeing him. And Rosalie just basically told her, be careful. You know, you got someone that's good to both you and to Jacob, and if Jacob accepts him and he seems to adore Jacob, I don't see the problem. So she goes into work, she comes to his office and to give him a report. They have a conversation. He says, "I'm sorry if you think that I was trying to control you like a commodity. That's not what it was." She's still under the notion that he's just using her for sex, and she's just the in-between thing from Naomi, and that he just likes the thrill of the chase and just wants to be able to get people, and then he loses interest. And again, she's like develop a whole thought process, doesn't really have any grounds for it. She doesn't. She really doesn't. She's just shooting the shit at this point. Cause again, she's the one that's all. He's the one that wants to make love to her. She's always one to fuck. You know. So it's like, again, you're putting something on him, and it's like, that's insane. But anyway, that's how she feels. She tried to compare him to her ex-husband. He's like, I am nothing like him, you know? And she winds up leaving. Candace was trying to listen in at the door. Nothing's got resolved. It just is what it is at this point. Savannah's at home. Her cell phone rings. She was hoping it was Tobias. So she just answered it, but it was Colt. He's calling because he says he wants to see the boy. He's changed, all this type of stuff. He's going to be coming through soon and wants to see him. And he's like, clearly you're doing really well, because she's got a new job. She was able to pay that bill off, all this type of stuff. So she said she signed up for assistance. That's how the bill got paid. And he's like, that's not what you said before. She was like, I was with friends. I didn't want to own up to that, you know? And again, he's got a gambling problem and he smells money. So I'm like, oh, he's coming for it. So she tried to threaten him with a restraining order. He's like, with what? You never call the police. Why would they ever believe you? Where do you show that I have ill intentions? So again, you go from not giving two fucks about your kid. The child is sick. You still don't give a fuck about the kid. And now all of a sudden you were figuring something out to try and help her. And now you want to come to New York to see her. I smell a whole ass fucking rat. She winds up, of course, hanging up the phone on him. And then her parents are going to come for Easter. That's coming up. And then she's thinking like summer's going to be right around the corner and she's going to have to move when, Kay comes back. And she doesn't know if she's going to be able to stay in Sunnyside or if she's going to have to move completely outside of it. She doesn't know at this point. So our boy Tobias is on a trip. He's still in the air about the guy from Hong Kong. Is Zhang Ling or something like that. And the guy has been a wonderful host, okay? Because they've been in Hong Kong all week. So he's been a wonderful host, but something about him feels desperate to Tobias, and that doesn't work for him. Matthias is all about, oh, he's wonderful and all this type of crap. And he, of course, is very much into the local cuisine, if you know what I mean. And so he gets a phone call. He was hoping it was Tobias, but it was his brother Xavier. He wanted him to meet his girl Petra. It sounded more serious than anything he's ever, with his brother. Because this guy already introduced her to the mother, and now he's trying to introduce him to the brother. It's kind of like, yeah, this sounds a lot more serious than his other relationships. But unfortunately, he's out of town. He can't. So then the brother says something to him about, Mom told me that you and Naomi broke up. Sorry about that, but we kind of figured that was going to happen. And that, he needs to open himself up. He doesn't need to control everything, but you need to open yourself up and stop trying to keep affection feeling from coming in. So clearly he's got a control issue. We get that. But I mean, I would hate, I mean, honestly, a billionaire not having a control issue, I'm just saying, that doesn't seem logical to me anyway. But again, where did that come from? Is the $1 million question or $1 billion question I have, is where did that control issue come from? So the brother is telling him, I got a lot of model, she's got a lot of model friends. And he's like, no, 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 I'm good. Don't worry about me. I'm good. So he gets off the phone with him and he just tells Matthias, because Matthias is going to stay back in Hong Kong. He's like, try not to get anyone pregnant. Poor Savannah. It's been miserable for her. She knows that he's coming back in the States on Friday, but he didn't call her until that Sunday evening. Of course, she felt some type of way that he hadn't reached out since then, but I'm just like, bitch, your phone worked too. You could have reached out. But anyway, I digress. So they have a little conversation. They've both simmered down a lot. He wants to see her. She can't come that night, but he told her, call in sick tomorrow, spend the day with me. And so at first she's like, I can't do that. That's lying. But then, of course, she's going to see her boo. And so he tells her, I'll have Morris come and get you and bring you to his like actual home. Because at first I was like, how the heck is she going to do that? And he's got the penthouse. It's in the freaking building, but he's got another actual home. Morris comes and picks her up, takes her to his main place. It's still a penthouse. It's not like it's, it's still some huge penthouse somewhere else in the city. And she comes over and Tobias apologizes to her. He says, I'm sorry for what I did behind your back. I should not have done that. But I need to explain to you why I felt the need to try and fix the situation for you. Yes, it was guilt because of all the horrible things that I had said to you, but let me show you something. And so she follows him to a room, and there's things on the walls, but there's no furniture. And he says that the things on the wall were like the last things that they put up, and she can clearly see that it's a nursery. So this is what happened. Ivy was 4 months pregnant. They were coming back probably around 11ish at night, and they were about 5 minutes away from home. He looked at Ivy for a moment because she had said something, because they were talking about Christmas. This was going to be their first Christmas together as a family because the baby was due October. And when he looked back, there was a man crossing the street, or crossing the road, we'll say, and he swerved to miss, and the car wound up slamming on the side of where Ivy was. So that, of course, took out Ivy and the baby. He, of course, blames himself for their death. The media, of course, he was rich. Not as rich as he is now, but he was rich. They did everything to try and decimate his character. Eventually, that all stopped. But the guilt that he had survived and they didn't, it haunts him. He thinks about if he would have just swerved and hit that man, they would still be alive. So it's just absolutely crushing. And she understood why he feels the need to control. So she tells him, I'm completely here. You know, she was trying to get him to forgive himself. You know, of course, I'm sure he wants to, but wanting to do it and being able to do it are two different things. But she let him know that she is fully there for him. She's fully, completely in this. So Tobias and Savannah, they enjoy their time together. He had bought her a gift. It was a necklace from Cartier. It was called the Love Necklace. She, of course, was like, oh my gosh, it's too expensive. He's like, I wanted to just do something for you. Something really nice, X, Y, and Z. She accepted it. He's happy. Then they go into conversation about Candace and Matthias. And I said that's so wrong. No, we go to the POV, a conversation that's happening between Candace and Matthias. And I love that. We had gotten Candace's POV, and then I was like, okay, that's neat, you know. And now to have both of them, I don't know, I like that. It's kind of like overload for me, and I love it. So they're talking, and Candace is like, something's going on with the two of them. She called out sick, and Brioni told me that he says he's working from home. Something's going on. And Matthias is like, okay, but just need to get over it. Like, that man has been through a lot. So if he's found happiness, then I'm happy for him because he deserves it. He's been through enough for one lifetime already. And he told Candace, you need to let it go. He's never going to choose you. He's not going to wake up one day and look at you and think, oh my gosh, you're the one. It's not going to happen. You know? I love the bluntness because she needed. It's crazy how people will just hold on like that, you know? This man doesn't give her any inklings of anything, but she's still, because she's steadfast on this is what she wants, she will not let go of it. But people like that are psychotic and dangerous too, because he doesn't want you, but you want him. So what links are you going to go to try and get him? That's the worry with her, because she seemed crazy enough to do something. Matthias even told her, try the other Stone brother, you know? Like, jeez. And then he tells her, if you're that lonely, I can take care of you. And she goes, I'm not that lonely. And she hangs up. But Candace, of course, has the thought she is going to fix this because there is no way that Savannah Page is going to walk away with the main prize. We then switch to Colt's POV. I am loving this. Okay, it's like a high for me that we're doing this. We get Savannah's, we get Tobias's, we've gotten Candace's a couple times now, and now we're getting Colt's. Love it. Okay, so Cole isn't a lot of fucking debt. Okay, he borrowed 11,000, but he owes like 23,000 ish. Okay, the person that he owes, I forget the name. I think his name was Santino, or maybe Santino is the guy that he works for, or something like that. But anyway, they want a payment of $500 by next week. Apparently, each month they've been increasing what he has to pay. So last month he paid 500. He barely made that payment, and now they want 500 for this. No, he paid 300. I'm sorry, the previous month. Now they want 500 for this month. So he's like, he's going to try and get it up, but they don't believe he can do it. What they really want him to do is what he keeps trying not to do. They want him to do a drug run once a month to another state. And they'll knock off $1,000 for each run that he does. So they beat him up. And of course, he eventually agrees to do the drug run. So then we switch back to Savannah and Tobias. And she's like, been staying late like once a week to try and spend some time with Tobias. She's taking off some days when her parents come to visit and things like that. And she'll spend like 3 days with her parents, and then one day she'll spend with Tobias. And Jacob is all like, he loves Tobias. He, just absolutely adores Tobias. And she tells him, what did she tell him? No, he asked her about going to a gala. Tobias did. And she's not ready to go public. Okay? And he also tried to get her to open up about her past, but she's like, she's not ready either. But again, if the roles were reversed, I don't feel like she would be as willing to be okay with him not giving that information, right? But it's like she's withholding. And I kind of, I mean, I don't get it twisted. I understand you talk about the stuff when you're ready to. But this feels more so like you're just wanting to hide, because he's been completely open with you and honest with you. And it's like he should get that back. But I do also understand you also can't force someone to speak when they're not ready to speak. I freaking get it. I understand that. But I don't know, it's just kind of shitty. But he also needs to chill with trying to make her go public too. You know? She's not ready. She's told you she's not ready. Stop trying to create and invent shit so that you all can go public because that's what you want to do. Because I'm quite sure you are tired of hiding it. I'm sure you are. It would be more easier. But is it going to be easier for her? Is the real question as well. Tobias is in his office. Candace is going through her schedule. She's talking about the gala that's coming up. She wants to know if he's bringing a date. Um, and it's crazy how she just kind of sometimes she demands to know what's going on with his life because he said to her, put me down for plus one, and she's like, well, who's your plus one? And he said, just put me down for plus one. And he said, he had said, I guess, about Naomi and him had broken up, but he again didn't say who the plus one was for, and that of course pissed her off because it's giving more credence to the fact that it's going to be Savannah Page, and she's pissed about that. So she leaves out, and he wants to try to maybe ask her over Easter weekend to go to the gala. So the gala isn't next week, it's probably a few weeks away. But he wants to try and ask her again. Again, he's annoying me because she already told you no. Stop pressing her. It's not like she don't know when the fuck it is. You've told her. So if she changes her mind, she can tell you, you know? But keep trying to press her. I don't like that either on his end. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So anyway, he also is gonna try and get Matthias to kind of stay back so he can take Savannah to the Dex in San Diego for Dextronics. He wants to take her on that trip and send Matthias somewhere else. So fingers crossed, because you already know Matthias is going to be asking questions. He's going to probe because he's going to find out what the hell going on. So Tobias sets up this whole Easter shindig for Jacob. Jacob's eating a chocolate egg, but he didn't want to decorate cupcakes. He might have did like one of the craft things, but he's not into doing all this other stuff. And Savannah is saying like, "Oh, he is having fun," but I think she's just she's just trying to, soften. I don't know, maybe not hurt Tobias's feelings because he's done this whole big thing. But the baby just wanted to go to Bryant Park. That's all you wanted to do. Real simple. So that's what they wind up going to do. But right before they left, Jacob grabs Tobias's hand, and they look over and someone's waving at them, and it's the Henry Carson kid. Well, that's the bully. And it's him with his family. And so when they left, Tobias was like, why didn't we say hi to him or X, Y, and Z? And she explained that, those are the ones that, have been bullying him. That kid is the one that's been bullying him. And he's like, well, we should have waved even more so. So then Jacob invites him to his award ceremony. He's getting like this most helpful student award or something like that. And Tobias wanted to go, but of course he didn't want to step on Savannah's toes and tell him yes. And then Savannah got to go back and say no. So he kind of looked to Savannah to kind of see if it was okay. Because again, this is kind of going public if this man shows up at this fucking school. Now, she did something that I didn't like, and she knew it was fucked up after she did it. She kind of tried to diminish the award for the child. It was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But this was a huge deal for Jacob. And when she realized she was doing that, she stopped. And she was like, you know what? No, it'll be nice for you to come X, Y, and Z. Because she could, like, you don't diminish that just because you're scared of something stupid. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't want to say that because there's a real fear there. A high profile person, you're going to become a target. It's a big deal. So I don't want to diminish that like she did that baby award. I'm not going to be a Savannah. So then later that night, they're drinking champagne, and he knows he's going to have to call a cab in order to get home. And he's got to go to San Diego to meet with Dextronics, and he, of course, asked her to come. She, of course, is like, won't Matthias be upset? He, of course, is like, I'm going to send him somewhere else. We have business that we're trying to get in different places. So she, of course, is like, I don't know. When you're in meetings, like, what the hell am I going to do? I'm not a leisurely type of person. I like to keep doing things like X, Y, and Z. Well, he said, well, what about working on that initiative we talked about? She, of course, is like, what are you talking about? Well, she had talked about helping single mothers with childcare. And she's like, well, there's already things in place. She said, he's like, yeah, but it's not something that you've worked on. It's something that you could do that could be different. And so he didn't want to say, you don't have to worry about funding, I got you, because, she just freak out about that. But that sounds like a great project for you to be able to help single mothers. You know what I mean? That should be something I would think you would want to jump on. Just saying. So, the parents are going to be there for a few weeks. And so she's thinking about the long haul, and, she doesn't want, well, how do I say it? Not her. Tobias is thinking long haul. Like, he doesn't think she wants to be an admin for forever. And, because he loves having her and Jacob in his life. And, he's found himself looking forward to these weekends. They used to be a very bleak time for him, very sad. And now he looks forward to them. So he's hoping that she wants to do more. But here again is where you're going to probably get in trouble, because what if that's all she wants to do? What if she doesn't want to do something more, you know, inventive or whatever? This is where you got to talk, and not assume stuff, but talk to her about what the, goals she really would want to do. Matthias is finally back. He's asking little questions. He's like, I hear you got a +1, trying to find out who it is. And he's trying to change the subject to Tobias. He's like, how was the rest of your trip to Hong Kong? And Tobias acts like he's not aware of the conversation that happened, the conversations that happen about him. Um, he knows what people think and say. Um, but then Matthias said something to him. What did he say? Something about, I don't know. I can't remember. But it was a comment that it was kind of felt like a dig, because it's Tobias's company, but Tobias kind of has to placate him a little bit with the whole thing of like, I wouldn't be where I am without you, X, Y, and Z. And Matthias going, yeah, I know I'm a very shrewd businessman and all this type of stuff. We find out he's gone to Yingling's home and stuff like that. And Tobias realizes, I never saw his home. He's kind of just taking all this information. I still think Matthias is up to no good. I could be wrong, but the fact that that Matthias used to be the golden boy at the Schwartz company, and then Tobias came along and surpassed him. I don't know. I don't know if he ever got over that, like if that's a lingering thing. I don't know. I just feel like there's something up with that. But anyway, the long hours, Tobias ass leaves work early. Like, he does not stay until 8 and 9 at night anymore. There's been an absolute change in him. Tobias goes to the event at the school. Of course, a few people are looking. And Savannah thought that because it was, she thought, how do I put this? She thought that the main reason that Tobias was coming was for her. But she realizes he's really there for Jacob. And she was like a nervous wreck up until him coming. Like, she was freaking out. Oh my gosh, what if someone, films you? Like, she was like straight up freaking out. Eventually, she settled down. Afterwards, Lenny's mom came up, and I forget her name, but she came up and she was like, oh, hi, and all this type of stuff. And when Tobias walked off, she was like, why didn't you tell me? And Savannah's like, it's a new development. And so, of course, the woman's like, we'll get together, one of these weekends, get the kids together. She wants the gossip, the tea. So they leave from there, and she knows it's starting, right? and she's got to be able to wrap her brain around this because this cannot be kept a secret forever. She had she had him drop her off like around the corner so they didn't come in at the same time. So anyway, she gets in there and Brioni is asking her questions, but it's not direct. It's not like, are you and the boss fucking? She's pretty much just kind of like, there's some rumors that are going around and they kind of need to be confirmed or not. She's like, Candace has been talking and all this type of stuff. And so she doesn't say anything. She's just like, okay, all right. Like, she doesn't know what's popping. So then later on that evening, she talks to Jacob and he tells her that Henry Carson called her a gold digger and he kicked him because he knew it wasn't a nice word, even though he doesn't know what it means. And so the teacher told, went off on the Henry Carson kid because, you know, that was awful for that kid to say. But, she of course told him, don't you be kicking people. So then, of course, he wanted to understand what it was, and she tried to explain it to him. And he's like, well, then that sounds like we are gold diggers because he buys us stuff, And she's like, no, no, that's not it. And she kept trying to break it down to him. Eventually, he kind of got it, kind of. But she also told him not to bring up, Tobias or anything like that when the parents were around. And she's afraid they're going to pull information out of him. But I'm like, you keeping too many secrets. And when you do that, the shit's going to fall out. That's just what's going to happen. Her parents come to town. She takes him to see so much stuff. It's crazy. It's like they're also going to be staying there for 3 weeks instead of 2. She's happy about that. Her mother tells her, "You look real radiant," and says, "Jacob's been talking about a Mr. Stone." And I'm like, you knew he was going to talk about him. You've been spending too much time. Yeah, he's going to talk about it. You can't control that shit. Um, so she just says, Mom, it's new. I'm taking it slow. And her parents, they worry because, the mistake before with Colt. And she's like, that's why I'm taking it slow. I'm mindful of Jacob, X, Y, and Z. Um, she says Jacob doesn't know that we're dating. And the mom is just kind of like, okay, all right, just want to make sure you're good. And so the mom also was like, we don't want to infringe on your time. And she's like, no, 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 you're good. And plus, they don't know she's like going to work tomorrow, but she's not going to work because she's going to be over at Tobias's place all day. So her parents are thankful because they need a break because she was overdoing it with all the places she was taking them. And I'm like, yeah, if they there for 3 weeks, you can go visit a place every other day or something. Like, gee, she was trying to pack it all in. So she's over at Tobias's place, and Tobias asks her again about the fucking gala. They had a little conversation about the gold digger comment. He was ready to do something, but he remembers kids are mean. They do shit. And so he was like, we can maybe even go to Miami for a few days afterwards. At first she was wishy-washy, but guess what? She eventually agreed. So the next day at work, she finally comes clean to Brioni and admits to the relationship that everyone knew was fucking happening. Max is going, who is Brioni's partner. She's going to help her with what she's going to wear for the gala. So then we switch to Tobias. He comes clean to Matthias. Everybody already knew. Matthias was just like, it's going to be a media circus after this happens. Her anonymity, it's gone. Like, it's gone once you all do this. This is your coming out. And so he tells her that's why he booked, for them to go to Miami, but he doesn't think it's going to be that bad. And I think he's not being realistic. And then he also goes out and tells Candace that Savannah Page is going to be his date for the gala, and her mouth is left wide open. She gets up early to get Jacob ready, but her dad's already up and he wants to talk. And he's like, your mom's got it. Chill out. He wants to talk about this Mr. Stone guy, that Jacob's always going on and on about. And so her mom finishes with Jacob and she comes in and she's under the notion, the mom is, that they haven't slept together yet. And the father's like, well, something seems off. Like, the dad thought he was like this old guy since he was like super rich. And she's like, no, 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 dad. He's like only a year older than me. He's just a really good businessman. And so she tells them, we haven't gone public, because I haven't told Jacob. She's like, but I'm going to go to this gala, so I need to tell Jacob. And they're like, okay. So she um, brought up that, what is it? She kind of told him how she was afraid about Colt. And the dad's like, he doesn't come around. Like, you need to live your life with no fear. Um, you don't have to worry about him. But they do want to meet Mr. Tobias Stone. So eventually she finds a dress. The girl was trying to get some bargain shit. And it was like, girl, you cannot do that. This is a high end event. And Max and Brianna, they finally got her this beautiful, gorgeous red gown and some gold Christian Louis Vuitton shoes. So she goes home and she decides to tell Jacob about her and Tobias. And he wasn't excited like she thought he was. And we find out it's because he says this past week he hasn't really seen her. And we find out she's been going shopping every day after work. And then he was concerned because he was like, do you like Mr. Stone more than me? And she's like, no, honey, no, 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 no. It's never that. It will never be that. So she's like, if you want me to cancel the trip, I will. He's like, no, no, no. He just wanted to make sure, like, you don't like him more than you like me because he felt a little abandoned. And she was like, absolutely not. So he's like, no, no, no. Then he asks, are you guys going to get married? And she's like, not next week. And he says, well, if he does ask you, would you say yes? And she says, yeah, I would. And he's like, okay, well, then I'm fine with it. You can go on your trip next week. He sounds like the cutest little boy. She goes to the event. She looks stunning. Soon as they get out, cameras start flashing. It's mayhem. They get inside. It's a great event. Wonderful speeches. And when they're ready to leave, she told him she couldn't stay the night because Jacob is going to be waiting up for her. He's like, that's fine. We have like all next week together. So it's so cool. So they leave out. It's even more crazier than when they came in. She felt nauseous with all the cameras flashing and stuff. Um, it was a lot, but they got inside of the car and Morris drove them off. So Savannah comes home. Her parents and Jacob are up. Jacob said, "Mommy, you were on TV." The dad looked a little worried. I guess with all of the pressing things you think about, safety and things like that. She's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. He has security. We're good. And Kay called her screaming in the phone, I cannot believe you did not tell me you were dating Tobias Stone. Like, I could kill you. She was so pissed. And she's like, I'm sorry, I meant to tell you this past week. And she's like, how long has this been going on? She's like, I don't know, like maybe 2 or 3 months. She's like, and you couldn't find the time to tell me in those 2 or 3 months. And she's like, hopefully when I come back, we can all, I can hang out with you guys. So they head to Miami. She, of course, is on this, PJ. It's freaking like a penthouse in the air. They have some conversation. She tells him about Kay's response and how crazy it would have been if they would have ran into her on that Hong Kong trip. And he said something about he might be going back there. And she was like, I thought you were uneasy about that, and about the Far East. And she's like, I'm sorry. He's like, yeah, but I trust Matthias. And she's like, okay, but I thought you normally like to go with your gut. And so he tells her the story of what happened when they were at Schwartz, which is what we already know. Um, Matthias was a golden boy, and now he's that. And again, it sounds like with this, there's guilt. you know? You trust him so much, you maybe let him get away with more stuff. You know he's grimy with women and stuff like that. But there's this guilt of, I kind of came in and stole your role. You know what I mean? So, I just don't trust Matthias. And apparently neither does Savannah. She doesn't completely trust him either, but she gets off the subject because she realizes they've got history. So, ain't no point. We find out he was dyslexic, and where it was more difficult for him throughout the years, and that this guy at Schwartz had really took the time to help him, and he started to see patterns that other people couldn't see, and that's where that boy genius thing came from. And so he winds up, I think, yeah, they fucked on the plane, I want to say. Yeah. She didn't, again, she left that subject alone because she was not trying to start their um, vacation with an argument about his closest friend. Yeah, that's just stupid. We switch to Colt's POV and we find out that he's with some hooker. He threw her a couple dollars. I'm like, bitch, you need to pay people money. Like, why are you paying hookers? But anyway, I digress. So someone had told him you need to look at the TV, some celebrity site or channel, and he's looking, and yep, it's Savannah. He reads the title and it's saying how, it's the reclusive billionaire Tobias Stone, X, Y, and Z, and how the guy lost his wife, all this stuff. And of course, Colt's mind is going, okay, I'm going to hitch a ride up to New York and I'm going to find out what price she's willing to pay to keep me out of their life forever. So they, of course, are having a wonderful time in Miami, fucking till they pass out. And she, of course, is loving this, wishes it could be like this forever. We switch to Colt. He is in New York at this greasy and infested hotel, and he's been calling her cell phone. She's not answering. So he calls Stone Enterprises because he looked up the information because he's been doing a lot of cyber stalking while he's been up there. And when he looks at her pictures online, she looks so beautiful, but he blames the economy for the reason that they are not together. And that's why his life went to shit. But now he can fix it. We switch to Candace's POV. A call comes through. Someone keeps calling for Savannah. She, of course, winds up like, send it to me. So she gets the call and she finds out this is her ex-husband, X, Y, and Z. Her ears perk up. Well, he wants the address for Savannah, and because he's like, I want to see my son, and she's not letting me see him, and all this type of stuff. So she looks up the information in HR, gives him the information, and he wants to know who's watching the kid, and she's like, I think it's the grandparents. And he's like, oh, okay. And she's like, I'm not supposed to give this to you, but I will. And then she reads off the address. So they're enjoying their vacation. They're laying out. He gets a phone call from his father because his mother's been calling, but he won't answer it. But his dad, again, super chill. He's just like, is it true? Are you with someone? Are you happy that you care about? You're good? Okay, I'll let your mom know. He doesn't care about the minuscule things. I just want to know that you're good. So then Savannah finally does tell him about the life with Colt. And he, of course, is beyond shocked and just appalled at how awful of a human being, Colt is. And he was like, you don't ever have to deal with that again. I'll protect you. And for the first time, she feels like he's definitely the person that can do it. So then we switch back to Colt. And he has been following the boy to school. He knows the grandparents are there to pick him up. Well, to take him and to pick him up. And he's like, okay, this is what's going on. So then he waits for the boy to get out of school. And then Jean, that's Savannah's mother's name. She's got his hand, Jacob's hand, and then out pops Colt. And the little boy goes, Dad? And her mother's like, Colt, what are you doing here? And he's like, "Oh, I had a job up this way. Just wanted to see my son. I've been calling Savannah to let her know, and she's not answering." And he's like, he's my blood too. And he's like, "How do you think feels for me being so far away from him? Like all this stuff you're saying." He's like, I know I make mistakes and stuff, but I'm trying to get it together and do better. And in his head, he's thinking, he's trying to get a plan together so that everything that he needs can be fixed. And that's how the book ends. I think he's going to kidnap that child. I really do. And get a ransom. I feel like that's what he's going to do. But the last book in the series is called The Vow, and we're going to dive into that one next week. What did you guys think of book 2? I loved it. I can't wait to find out what's going to happen in the conclusion. I know Colt's up to no good. I feel like Candace giving that address is not the end of it. She's going to find another way to help Colt with the bullshit. um, I'm glad the stuff that needs to be talked about has been talked about, because it was holding both Tobias and Savannah back. So I'm glad about that, because they was getting on my fucking nerves. But anyway, what did you guys think? Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available. And the links are going to be available down below in the description section. Um, Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.